Global CEO Tycoon abandoned his infertile wife. 5 years later, he spotted her with twins. Her heels didn't click against the floor. She never made noise when she entered a room. Even now, after 7 years of marriage, she moved like a whisper. She carried a small brown envelope in her hands, the kind used for medical results. Her knuckles were white around it. Alexander didn't turn. He already knew. "I got the final report today," she said, her voice steady, but brittle, like glass about to crack. He didn't answer, didn't move. The city lights below glittered, indifferent. They ran every test, twice, triple-checked. She took a step closer. "There's no mistake, Alexander. My body, it won't carry a child. Not naturally, not with treatment, not even with surrogacy using my eggs. The damage from the infection, it's irreversible." Still, he said nothing. She swallowed hard. "I thought, maybe if we tried IVF with donor eggs?" No, the words sliced through the room like a blade. Finally, he turned. His face was calm, too calm. His suit, tailored, charcoal, worth more than most people's monthly rent, was immaculate. His hair perfectly styled. His eyes, usually warm when he looked at her, were now cold, calculating. "No donor eggs," he said, voice clipped. "No surrogates carrying someone else's DNA. No headlines about Vance heirs born via third party. My children will be mine. Biologically. Fully." Clara flinched as if he'd struck her. "Alexander, I'm still me. I'm still your wife." He walked toward her then, slow, deliberate. He stopped inches away, close enough that she could smell his cologne. Expensive, woodsy, the scent she used to bury her face in after long nights. Now it made her stomach twist. "And what am I supposed to tell the board?" he asked, voice low. "That the woman I married, the woman who was supposed to secure the Vance legacy, can't give me an heir? Do you know what they'll say? Find a new wife, one who can, and they'll be right." Her breath hitched. "Is that what I am to you? A vessel for your legacy?" He didn't answer right away. His gaze flickered over her face. The freckles across her nose he used to kiss. The dark circles under her eyes from sleepless nights waiting for test results. The way her bottom lip trembled just slightly when she was trying not to cry. "You were more than that," he said quietly. "Once." The words shattered her. She took a step back, clutching the envelope to her chest like armor. "What changed?" He exhaled sharply, running a hand through his hair, the first sign of frustration she'd seen all night. "Nothing changed, Clara. This is who I am, who I've always been. You knew what you signed up for when you married me. The Vance name doesn't survive on love. It survives on bloodline, on control, on perfection." Her voice cracked. "And I'm imperfect now?" He looked away. "You're incompatible." The word hung in the air like a death sentence. She laughed. A broken, hollow sound. "Incompatible? That's what you'll tell the press? That we're incompatible? Not that you're discarding me because my uterus failed your corporate strategy." He stiffened. "Don't make this ugly. It's already ugly, Alexander." Her voice rose, trembling with fury and grief. "You're standing here in our home, the home I decorated, the home where I waited for you every night while you worked late, the home where I cried myself to sleep after every failed cycle. And you're telling me I'm incompatible, like I'm a defective product you're returning." He turned back to her, eyes blazing. "You think this is easy for me? You think I wanted this? I think you never loved me for me," she whispered. "You loved the idea of me, the brilliant surgeon, the elegant wife, the future mother of your perfect children. And now that I can't give you that last part, I'm disposable." He didn't deny it. The silence stretched, suffocating. Clara straightened her spine. Tears streamed down her face, but her voice was steel. "Then do it. File for divorce. Say whatever you need to say, but don't pretend this is about us growing apart. Don't pretend it's mutual. You're abandoning me, and the world will know it, even if you pay them to stay quiet." She turned and walked out. He didn't chase her. He didn't call her name. He just stood there watching her go. The woman who used to bring him coffee in bed, who memorized his schedule so she could surprise him with lunch, who held his hand during his father's funeral when he couldn't cry. And when the elevator doors closed behind her, he finally moved. He walked to the bar, poured another drink, sat in the dark. The city glittered below, endless and uncaring. Somewhere out there, Clara was driving through the rain, her hands gripping the steering wheel, her body shaking with silent sobs. She didn't go to a friend's house, didn't call her mother. She drove until the streets emptied, until the skyline faded behind her, until she found herself parked in front of an all-night diner on the edge of the city. She sat in the car for an hour, staring at the neon sign flickering in the rain. Then she walked inside, ordered coffee, sat in a corner booth, and for the first time in years, she cried without holding back. She cried for the babies she'd never hold. She cried for the husband who'd stopped seeing her. She cried for the future that had been erased with a single word: incompatible. Back in the penthouse, Alexander stared at his phone. It lay silent on the table. No missed calls, no texts, nothing. He opened his contacts, scrolled to her name. He hovered over it. Then he turned off the screen. He told himself it was for the best. He told himself she'd move on. He told himself he was doing what he had to do. But deep down, in the quietest, most honest part of his soul, he knew he had just destroyed the only real thing he'd ever had. And he would spend the next 5 years pretending it didn't matter, until the day he saw her again, smiling, holding 2 little hands, and everything he thought he knew crumbled to dust. The rain kept falling. Neither of them slept that night. One because her heart had been ripped out, the other because he'd done the ripping, and didn't yet know how much he'd missed the warmth of what he'd thrown away. This was the beginning, not of a love story, but of a reckoning. Certo, agora tu como narrador e storyteller desenvolva a historia sem marcacos com o nome de cada topico que for desenvolve. Mi conti sobrio topico tu com dialogo como su fosso espectador. Sempre lembrando de desenvolver com vida moco. Com dos sentimentos de forma que a estrutura de narrativa utiliza uma linha temporal linear de modo o espectador sentir o que o personagem está sentindo amigos. Com 6.000 characters com 3 max. Preview: the morning sun sliced through the blinds of the law office like golden blades. Too bright, too sharp for the darkness settling inside Clara's chest. She sat perfectly still in the leather chair, spine straight, hands folded neatly in her lap. Her wedding ring, platinum, elegant, engraved with their initials, sat heavy on her finger. She hadn't taken it off. Not yet. Across the polished mahogany desk, Alexander Vance sat beside his attorney, Richard Lowell, a man whose smile never reached his eyes and whose suits cost more than Clara's monthly salary as a surgeon. Papers were spread before them, neat, organized, cold. Mrs. Vance, Richard began, voice smooth as silk over steel. This is a very generous settlement. Fully paid alimony for 5 years. A luxury apartment in the West Village. Access to your private accounts untouched. And, of course, complete discretion. No press, no interviews, no public statements from either party. Clara didn't look at him. She looked at Alexander. He wouldn't meet her gaze. She swallowed. And in return, Richard leaned forward slightly. You sign the papers. You waive any future claims to Vance Holdings assets. You relinquish any right to use the Vance name publicly. And you agree to remain silent regarding the circumstances of the dissolution. Circumstances. That word again. Sterile. Legal. Empty. She turned her head slowly toward Alexander. Is that what you want? Silence. He finally looked at her. His eyes, once the color of warm honey when he smiled at her, were now slate. Distant. Detached. It's cleaner this way, he said. For both of us. For you, she corrected softly. Not for me. He didn't flinch. She let out a breath, slow, trembling. You don't even want me to have your name anymore? After 7 years? After everything? He shifted in his seat. It's not personal, Clara. It's branding. The Vance name carries weight. Legacy. I can't have it diluted. Diluted. like she was contaminated. She closed her eyes for a moment. When she opened them, something inside her had hardened. "Fine," she said, voice quiet but steady. "But I won't take the money. Or the apartment." Richard blinked. "Mrs. Vance, that's highly unusual." "I'm not your Mrs. Vance," she said, standing abruptly. "Not anymore. And I won't be bought off with hush money disguised as generosity. I didn't fail you, Alexander. My body didn't betray you. Life did. And if that makes me incompatible with your empire, then let me walk away clean. No alimony, no property, no strings." Alexander finally stood. "Clara, don't be dramatic. This isn't a movie. Sign the papers. Take what's offered. Move on." She turned to face him fully. Her eyes glistened, but no tears fell. "Not here. Not in front of them." "Dramatic?" she whispered. "You're divorcing me because I can't give you a child. And you're sitting here pretending it's a business transaction. That's not drama, Alexander. That's cruelty dressed in a suit." He stiffened. "I'm trying to protect you." "From what?" "The truth." She let out a broken laugh. "You're not protecting me. You're erasing me. And I won't let you by my silence. I won't let you pretend this was mutual. I won't let you rewrite history." She reached into her purse, pulled out the envelope from the fertility clinic, placed it gently on the desk. "Here, keep it. Frame it if you want. Proof that I tried, that I bled, that I hoped, that I broke, and that you walked away the moment I couldn't give you what you wanted." She slid the wedding ring off her finger, set it beside the envelope. "I don't want your money. I don't want your pity. I don't want your name." She stepped toward him, so close he could smell the lavender soap she always used. So close he could see the faint scar above her eyebrow from the skiing accident he'd kissed better. So close he could feel the tremor in her voice. "But I want you to remember this moment," she whispered, "because one day you'll wake up in your perfect penthouse, surrounded by your perfect empire, and you'll realize you traded something real for something hollow. And when that day comes, don't come looking for me." She turned and walked out. No slamming doors, no shouting, just the quiet click of her heels on marble, fading down the hallway. Alexander didn't move. Richard cleared his throat. "Shall I prepare a revised settlement? Remove the alimony clauses." Alexander stared at the ring on the desk. Small, simple, beautiful. He picked it up. It was still warm. He closed his fist around it. "Leave it as is," he said hoarsely. "She'll come back. When the money runs out, when reality hits, she'll come crawling back." But even as he said it, something deep inside him knew. She wouldn't. Outside, the city buzzed. Honking cabs, chattering pedestrians, the relentless rhythm of life moving forward. Clara stood on the sidewalk, clutching her purse like a lifeline. The wind tugged at her coat. The sun burned her eyes. She didn't cry. Not yet. She walked, block after block, past luxury boutiques, past cafes where couples laughed over lattes, past billboards with Alexander's face, Vance Holdings, building the future. She didn't look up. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. A text from her mother. "Are you okay, sweetheart?" She didn't answer. Another buzz. Her best friend, Lena. "I'm outside your building. I brought wine and bad rom-coms. Don't you dare say no." Clara stopped walking. She looked up at the sky, took a deep, shuddering breath, and then, for the first time in months, she let herself feel it all. The betrayal, the abandonment, the grief. It crashed over her like a tidal wave. Sudden, violent, unstoppable. She stumbled into an alleyway, back pressed against cold brick, hands covering her face as sobs ripped through her body. She cried for the future she'd imagined, birthday parties, school plays, tiny hands holding hers. She cried for the love she thought was unshakable. She cried for the woman she used to be, the one who believed in forever. And when the tears finally slowed, when her breath steadied, she wiped her face with the sleeve of her coat. She pulled out her phone, texted Lena, "Give me 1 hour, then come find me." I'm not alone anymore. She opened her banking app, transferred every cent from their joint account, the one Alexander had forgotten about, into a new, private one. Not much, but enough to buy a bus ticket, enough to rent a room, enough to start over. She opened a notes app, typed one sentence, "I will not be erased." Then she deleted it. No, she wouldn't write promises to herself on screens that could be hacked, tracked, monitored. She needed something deeper, something permanent. She walked into a small tattoo parlor 3 blocks away, didn't look at the designs, didn't ask for suggestions. She rolled up her sleeve, pointed to the inside of her left wrist. "I want 2 words," she said, voice raw but clear. "Still here." The artist nodded, didn't ask questions. As the needle buzzed against her skin, Clara didn't flinch. The pain was nothing compared to what she'd already survived. That night, Alexander sat alone in the penthouse. The divorce papers lay unsigned on the table. The ring sat in his palm. He poured himself a drink, then another. He scrolled through old photos on his phone. Vacations, galas, quiet mornings in bed. Clara laughing, Clara reading, Clara asleep on his shoulder during a flight. He stopped on one. Her, standing in their kitchen, flour dusting her nose, holding up a lopsided cake she tried to bake for his birthday. She'd written "Happy Birthday" in crooked icing. He'd teased her for it. She'd thrown a dish towel at him. He'd kissed her anyway. He stared at the photo until his vision blurred. Then he set the phone down, turned off the lights, sat in the dark. Somewhere across the city, Clara lay on a borrowed couch in Lena's tiny apartment, wrapped in a blanket that smelled like lavender and home. Her wrist throbbed faintly. Her heart ached fiercely. But for the first time in years, she breathed freely. She was no longer Mrs. Vance. She was Clara, and she was still here. The next morning, Alexander's assistant called. "The board meeting is at 10, sir. They're expecting the announcement." He looked at the unsigned papers, at the ring, at the empty space beside him in bed. "Tell them," he said quietly, "the divorce is final." He didn't say how. He didn't say why. He just hung up. And for the first time in his life, Alexander Vance felt truly, devastatingly alone. Clara boarded a bus at dawn. No destination, no plan, just forward motion. As the city faded behind her, she pressed her fingers to the fresh ink on her wrist. Still here, and she whispered it like a vow. To herself, to the future, to the man who thought she'd disappear. She was still here, and she would never be invisible again. Certo, agora tu como narrador e storyteller desenvolva a historia sem marcacos com o nome de cada tópico que for desenvolve. Mi conti sobrio tópico 3 com dialogo como su, faço espectador. Sempre lembrando de desenvolver com vida moco. Com os sentimentos de forma que a estrutura de narrativa utiliza uma linha temporal linear de modo o espectador sentir o que o personagem está sentindo amigos. Com 6.000 characters com 3 max. Preview. The bus rolled to a stop in the sleepy coastal town of Havens Cove just as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in bruised purples and molten gold. Clara stepped off with nothing but a single suitcase, a backpack full of medical textbooks, and the echo of a life left behind still ringing in her bones. The salt-kissed wind tangled in her hair, sharp and alive, so different from the sterile, filtered air of the city she'd fled. She inhaled deeply. For the first time in months, her lungs didn't feel like they were collapsing. She didn't know anyone here. That was the point. She rented a tiny cottage 3 blocks from the sea, peeling blue paint, creaky floorboards, a porch swing that groaned with every breeze. The landlord, a retired fisherman named Gus with a beard like storm clouds and eyes that had seen too much, took one look at her hollow cheeks and quiet eyes and didn't ask for references. "You running from something, miss?" he asked, handing her the key. She almost said yes. Instead, she smiled, small, fragile, but real. "Just running toward quiet." He nodded. Quiet's got plenty of that. The first night, she sat on the porch swing, wrapped in an old quilt, listening to the waves crash against the shore like a heartbeat. She didn't cry, Not yet. She just breathed. Let the rhythm of the ocean steady her. Let the stars, brighter here, unobscured by city lights, remind her that the world was bigger than boardrooms and betrayals. She opened her journal. Blank pages stared back. She wrote one sentence. I am not what he left behind. I am what remains. Then she closed it. 2 weeks later, she walked into the town's only medical clinic, a modest brick building with chipped paint and a flickering neon sign that read Havens Cove Community Health. Inside, the air smelled of antiseptic and old coffee. Posters about flu shots and diabetes management lined the walls. The receptionist, a woman in her 60s with bright pink glasses and a name tag that read Marge, looked up from her crossword puzzle. Help you, hon? Clara cleared her throat. I'm a doctor. General surgery, but I'm certified in family medicine too. I was wondering, are you hiring? Marge raised an eyebrow. Got your license? Clara pulled it from her wallet. Still valid, still bearing her maiden name, Morrow. She'd reclaimed it the moment the divorce was finalized. Marge studied it, then studied her. You look like you haven't slept in a year. Clara didn't deny it. I'm a fast healer. Marge snorted. Honey, this ain't a hospital. It's a Band-Aid and prayer kind of place. We patch up fisherman cuts, deliver babies in the back room when the ambulance is late, and hold hands with folks who just need someone to listen. You sure you're cut out for that? Clara thought of Alexander's cold boardrooms, of the way he'd looked at her like she was a broken machine. I'm exactly cut out for that, she said softly. Marge grinned. Start Monday. Pays crap. Hours are worse. But the coffee's free, and the patients will hug you if you let M. The first day, she saw a little girl with a scraped knee, an old man with pneumonia, and a pregnant teenager too scared to tell her parents. She stitched, she listened, she held hands. She didn't wear designer scrubs, didn't have an assistant, didn't check her phone every 5 minutes for messages that would never come. She was just Clara, and it felt like coming home. That night, she sat on her porch again, journal open. This time, the words came easier. Today, Mrs. Henderson brought me homemade pie because I stayed late to check on her husband's blood pressure. She called me dear, not Mrs. Vance, not the CEO's wife, just dear. I think I like that. She paused, then added, I miss surgery, the precision, the control. But here, I'm learning something new. Healing doesn't always happen under bright lights with machines beeping. Sometimes, it happens in a dim room with a warm blanket and someone saying, it's gonna be okay. I think I needed to learn that too. Months passed. She stopped flinching at the sound of her phone buzzing. She started smiling at strangers. She adopted a scruffy mutt from the shelter, named him Atlas, because he carried her grief like it was nothing, just trotted beside her with his tongue lolling out, as if to say, we got this. She didn't date, didn't want to. The thought of letting someone else close, of trusting again, felt like standing on the edge of a cliff. But she wasn't lonely, not really. The town embraced her, invited her to potlucks, asked her to judge the annual pie contest, let her kids draw pictures for her fridge. She became Dr. Clara, not a title, but a term of endearment. Then, one rainy Tuesday, she pulled an old file from the back of her closet. The fertility clinic records, the ones she'd saved, the ones Alexander never knew about. She sat at her kitchen table, the rain drumming against the windows, and opened the folder. Inside were printouts, charts, and most importantly, a single vial-shaped label with a barcode and 2 words. Embryos, 2. Frozen. Viable. Hers. Theirs. She'd signed the papers allowing their storage indefinitely. A loophole she'd prayed he'd never notice. And he hadn't. Too busy erasing her to check the fine print. She traced the label with her finger. What if? The thought was dangerous, reckless, impossible. And yet, she thought of the little girl with the scraped knee, giggling as Clara put on a cartoon Band-Aid. She thought of the pregnant teenager, now holding her newborn, whispering, thank you for not judging me. She thought of Atlas, snoring at her feet, utterly content. She thought of Alexander's cold eyes when he said, "Incompatible." A fire sparked in her chest. Not anger, not revenge, resolve. She made an appointment at the nearest fertility center, 2 hours away by car. She drove there in silence, hands gripping the wheel, heart pounding like a war drum. The doctor, a kind-faced woman named Dr. Reyes, reviewed the file. "You understand the risks?" she asked gently. "At your age, with your history, it's not guaranteed. And doing this alone." Clara met her gaze. "I'm not alone. I have a town that loves me, a dog who thinks I'm the sun, and 2 tiny possibilities that deserve a chance." Dr. Reyes smiled. "Then let's give them one." The procedure was quiet, clinical. No one held her hand. But when it was over, when she lay on the table staring at the ceiling, she didn't feel fear. She felt peace. "This is for us," she whispered to the emptiness. "Not for him, not for his legacy, for us." 3 weeks later, she sat in the same clinic, staring at a positive pregnancy test. Alone. No fanfare, no champagne, no partner to share the moment. Just her, and the quiet hum of the fluorescent lights. She pressed a hand to her stomach and wept, not from sadness, from awe, from defiance, from the sheer, staggering miracle of it. She told no one, not yet. She kept working, kept smiling, kept living. But at night, when she was alone, she'd lie in bed, one hand on her still flat stomach, and whisper to the life growing inside her, "You're wanted, you're loved, you're mine." And for the first time since Alexander walked away, she felt whole. The journal entry that night was simple. "Today, I became a mother, not because a man decided I was worthy, not because my body met someone else's standards, but because I chose to create life on my terms in my time with my love. I am not broken. I am becoming." She closed the journal, looked out the window at the moonlit sea, and smiled. Alexander, meanwhile, sat in a boardroom halfway across the world, signing billion-dollar deals, surrounded by people who laughed at his jokes and hung on his every word. He had everything and nothing. He didn't know that, at that very moment, the woman he'd discarded was carrying the only thing he'd ever truly lost, and that, in 5 years, he would see her again, radiant, alive, holding 2 tiny hands, and his world would shatter. But for now, Clara slept, dreaming of lullabies, of tiny fingers, of a future she was building, brick by brick, heartbeat by heartbeat. But when the last guest left, when the music died and the lights dimmed, he stood alone, staring at his reflection in the floor-to-ceiling window. He didn't recognize the man looking back. Sharp jaw, cold eyes, perfect hair, empty soul. He drained the glass, set it down with a quiet clink. His phone buzzed. A message from his assistant. "Flight to Zurich confirmed for 8 a.m. Board meeting at noon. Press release ready for your approval. Vance Holdings acquires Helix Biotech, a new era in genetic legacy." Genetic legacy. The words slithered under his skin. He thought just for a second of Clara, of her hands once warm in his, of her laugh once bright in his ears, of the way she used to look at him like he was the only man in the room, before he made her feel like a footnote in his empire. He shook his head, poured another drink. "Don't," he muttered to himself. "Don't go there." But the ghost of her was everywhere. In the silence between boardroom applause, in the hollow ache behind his ribs when he woke up alone, in the way no woman since had dared to challenge him, really challenge him the way she had. He dated models, actresses, heiresses, brilliant, beautiful, polished women who knew how to wear couture and quote stock prices. They laughed at his jokes, nodded at his opinions, never asked him hard questions, never asked him, "Are you happy?" He told himself he didn't need that. He told himself he didn't miss her. He told himself he'd made the right choice. But late at night, when the city slept and the penthouse was too quiet, he'd find himself scrolling through old photos, hidden in a folder labeled Taxes 2018, Pictures of her in the kitchen, flour on her nose, her asleep on the couch, book on her chest, her standing on a cliff in Santorini, wind in her hair, eyes closed, smiling like she was breathing in the sky. He'd close the folder, turn off the screen, stare at the ceiling, and wonder, 5 years. 5 years since he'd walked away. 5 years since he'd last heard her voice. 5 years since he'd last seen her face. Not in paparazzi shots or gossip blogs, but really seen her. The way her eyes crinkled when she was trying not to cry. The way she bit her lip when she was thinking. The way she'd press her forehead against his shoulder when the world got too loud. He tried to find her. Once, 6 months after the divorce. Hired a discreet investigator. The report came back. Subject relocated to coastal region. No public records. No social media. No forwarding address. Last known sighting. Small medical clinic in Havens Cove. Appears to be working under maiden name Moreau. No further trace. He'd stared at the file, then burned it. Told himself it was closure. It wasn't. It was the beginning of a slow, quiet unraveling. He started noticing things. The way his board members glanced at their watches during meetings, not out of boredom, but because they had children waiting at home. The way his CFO, a man 10 years his senior, left the office every Friday at 4 p.m. sharp to coach his daughter's soccer team. The way his sister, Evelyn, looked at him during family dinners, not with judgment, but with pity. "You're building an empire, Alex," she'd said once, swirling her wine. "But who's going to inherit it if you're too lonely to enjoy it?" He'd laughed it off, but the words stuck, like a thorn under his skin. Then came the dreams. Not nightmares. Not exactly. Just moments. Clara, standing in a sunlit kitchen, humming as she stirred soup. Clara, curled up on the couch, reading aloud from a novel. Clara holding a baby, his baby. Tiny fingers wrapped around her thumb, eyes the same shade of green as his. He'd wake up gasping, heart pounding, reaching for a warmth that wasn't there. He threw himself into work harder. Acquisitions, expansion, philanthropy galas where he donated millions and received standing ovations. He told himself it was enough. It wasn't. Nothing was enough. And then the invitation. Global Health Innovators Summit, Havens Cove, Maine. Keynote speaker, Dr. Clara Moreau, revolutionizing rural medicine through community-centered care. His hand froze over his keyboard. Clara, here, Havens Cove. The name rang a bell. Faint, buried under layers of corporate memos and jet lag. He pulled up the investigator's old file. Last known sighting. Small medical clinic in Havens Cove. His breath caught. He clicked the speaker bio. There she was, older, wiser, radiant. Her hair longer, sun-kissed at the ends. Her smile softer, but stronger. Her eyes, God, her eyes, still held that quiet fire he remembered. The one that had once looked at him with love, and then with devastation. The caption read, Dr. Moreau transformed rural healthcare in Havens Cove, reducing infant mortality by 40% and pioneering mobile clinics for isolated communities. Recently honored with the National Compassion in Medicine Award. He stared at the screen. His throat tightened. She hadn't just survived. She'd thrived. Without him. Because of him? He didn't know. He didn't want to know. But he couldn't look away. He told himself not to go. It was a medical conference, not his world. He had meetings in Zurich, in Dubai, in Singapore. He didn't need to see her. Didn't need to reopen old wounds. Didn't need to. His assistant's voice crackled over the intercom. Sir, your car is ready for the airport. Zurich flight departs in 3 hours. He looked back at the screen, at her face, at the life she'd built, at the woman he'd thrown away. He picked up the phone. Cancel Zurich. Pause. Sir, book me a flight to Maine. First class. Today. Another pause. May I ask why? He stared at Clara's photo. Business, he said hoarsely. But they both knew it wasn't. The flight was long, turbulent. He didn't sleep. He kept seeing her face, kept hearing her voice, Don't come looking for me. He was looking, and he didn't know why. Not for forgiveness, not for reconciliation. Maybe just to see if she was real. If the woman in the photo, the one glowing with purpose and peace, was the same woman he'd shattered. Maybe to prove to himself that he hadn't destroyed her. Or maybe to see if she'd look at him the way she used to, just once. He landed in Portland, rented a car, drove north along the coast. The ocean stretched out beside him, wild and endless. The air smelled like salt and pine. Nothing like the city, nothing like his world. He felt exposed, vulnerable, like he'd stepped into a dream he wasn't supposed to be part of. He checked into a boutique in overlooking the harbor, didn't unpack, just stood by the window watching fishing boats bob in the water. His phone buzzed. A reminder. Keynote begins at 2 p.m. Harborview Conference Center. He looked at his watch. 1:15 p.m. He should shower, shave, put on his power suit. He didn't move. At 1:45, he walked down to the conference center, blended into the crowd. Doctors in scrubs, researchers in blazers, students with backpacks. No one recognized him. Good. He didn't want to be Alexander Vance, CEO. He just wanted to be a man in the back of the room, watching her. The auditorium filled. The lights dimmed. And then there she was, walking onto the stage, confident, calm, beautiful. She adjusted the mic, smiled at the audience. "Thank you all for being here," she said, voice warm, clear, steady. "Today, I want to talk about something simple and something radical. Care." Alexander's chest tightened. She hadn't changed. And yet, she had. She was softer, stronger, more alive than he'd ever seen her. She spoke for 40 minutes about patience, about community, about showing up even when you're tired, even when the system fails you, even when you feel like giving up. She didn't mention him, didn't mention their past, didn't mention the pain, but he heard it, in the pauses, in the way her voice caught when she talked about women who were told they weren't enough, in the way her fingers brushed her wrist, where, he now noticed, a small tattoo peeked out from under her sleeve. Still here, his breath hitched. The Q&A began. A young medical student stood. "Dr. Moreau, what kept you going during your hardest days?" Clara smiled, small, sad. "Real hope," she said, "and stubbornness, and the belief that healing doesn't always look like a cure. Sometimes it looks like showing up, even when you're broken, especially when you're broken." Alexander's hands clenched in his lap. The session ended. Applause thundered. He didn't clap. He just watched her hug colleagues, watched her laugh with students, watched her gather her notes, slinging a worn leather satchel over her shoulder. And then she turned and looked straight at him, their eyes locked, across the room, across 5 years, across a lifetime of choices. Her smile faded, her breath caught. She knew him, even in the crowd, even after all this time. She knew him, and for the first time in 5 years, Alexander Vance felt truly, terrifyingly seen. She didn't run, didn't look away, just held his gaze. 1 second, 2, 3. Then she turned and walked out, not fast, not slow, just away. He should have let her go, should have stayed in his seat, should have boarded his flight back to Zurich. But he didn't. He stood, pushed through the crowd, followed her. He spotted her outside, standing by the harbor railing, staring at the water. He stopped a few feet behind her, didn't speak, didn't move, just breathed. The wind tugged at her hair. The sun glinted off the waves. And then 2 small figures came running toward her, laughing, squealing, tiny hands reaching. "Mama, Mama, look what we found." She turned, face lighting up with a smile so bright it hurt to look at. She dropped to her knees, opened her arms, and pulled them close. 2 little boys, 4 years old, identical, wild curls, green eyes. His eyes. Alexander's world stopped. His heart stopped. His breath stopped. He stared, couldn't move, couldn't think, couldn't breathe. The boys chattered, showing her seashells, jumping in place. tugging at her coat. She laughed, soft, warm, full of love. Then she looked up and met his gaze again. This time she didn't look away. This time she smiled. Not a kind smile, not a forgiving smile, a knowing smile. I've been waiting for this moment smile. She stood, took each boy's hand, and walked toward him. Slowly, deliberately, the boys looked up at him, curious, unafraid. One of them grinned. "Are you a doctor too, mister?" Alexander couldn't speak, couldn't move, couldn't think. Clara stopped inches away, looked him in the eye. The boys, his boys, they stared up at him with wide, curious eyes. So green, so familiar, so undeniably his. One had a tiny freckle just beneath his left eye, the same as Alexander's. The other had Clara's dimple when he grinned, which he was doing now, unafraid, unguarded, utterly innocent. "Are you a doctor too, mister?" the freckled one asked again, bouncing slightly on his toes. Alexander opened his mouth. Nothing came out. Clara didn't rush him, didn't fill the silence. She just stood there, holding their hands, watching him. Not with triumph, not with cruelty, but with something far more dangerous. Expectation. She was waiting to see what kind of man he had become. He swallowed hard, forced air into his lungs. I'm not a doctor." The boy with the dimple tilted his head. "Then why are you at the doctor place?" Clara squeezed their hands gently. Theo, this is someone Mama used to know." Leo, the freckled one, squinted. "Like a friend." Theo, the dimpled one, tugged at Clara's sleeve. "Does he know Uncle Gus?" "He gives us candy." Alexander's throat tightened. Uncle Gus? The fisherman? The man who gave them candy? Who the hell was this life? This warm, sun-drenched, laughter-filled life that had grown without him. He looked at Clara, really looked, saw the faint lines around her eyes, not from grief, but from smiling, saw the strength in her shoulders, saw the quiet pride in the way she stood, not hiding behind him, not shrinking, but anchoring herself between her sons and the ghost of her past. He crouched down slowly, knees protesting, suit jacket straining, until he was eye level with the boys. His sons. God, his sons. He reached out, then stopped himself. Didn't touch them. Not yet. Not without permission. I'm Alexander," he said, voice rough, unfamiliar even to himself. "And I think I might be your dad." Theo gasped. "Like in the movies?" Leo frowned. "But Mama said our dad was busy." Clara's jaw tightened just slightly, but she didn't interrupt. Alexander's chest cracked open. Didn't know about you. Not until now." Theo leaned forward, eyes sparkling. "Do you know how to fish?" "Uncle Gus says real dads know how to fish." Alexander blinked. I've never fished." Leo crossed his arms. "Mama can fish. She caught a big one last summer. Bigger than your head." Clara let out a soft laugh, warm, indulgent. "It was not bigger than his head, Leo, but it felt bigger." Leo insisted. Alexander stared at them, at their animated faces, at the way they leaned into Clara, trusting, safe, at the way they looked at him, not with fear, not with resentment, but with pure, unfiltered curiosity. He had missed everything. First steps, first words, first scraped knees, first nightmares, first laughter. He had missed them, and they had no idea. None. The weight of it crushed him. He looked up at Clara. How? It was all he could manage. She met his gaze, steady, calm, unflinching. "I kept them," she said simply. "The embryos, from before. I had them implanted. After you left." He stood slowly, legs trembling. You never told me." "I didn't owe you that," she said, voice quiet but firm. "You made it very clear what I was to you. A failed investment, a broken vessel. Why would I give you the one thing you wanted, when you threw away the woman who carried them?" He flinched. The boys sensed the shift. Leo tugged Clara's hand. "Mama, why is the Mr. sad?" She looked down at them, smile softening. "He's just surprised, sweetheart. It's a lot to take in. Theo nodded sagely. Like when I found out broccoli is good for you. Big surprise. Alexander let out a choked sound, half laugh, half sob. Clara's eyes flickered to him, just for a second, and something in them softened. Just a fraction. He seized it. Can I see them again? He asked, voice barely above a whisper. Not today, not now, but sometime? Please. She studied him. Not the CEO, not the tycoon, just the man. Raw, shaken, standing on a pier in a rumpled suit, begging for scraps of a life he didn't know existed. She exhaled slowly. Not here, she said. Not like this. If you want to be part of their lives, you do it my way. You earn it. No lawyers, no press, no money, no control. You show up, you listen, you learn, and you never make them feel like an afterthought. He nodded fast, desperate. Anything. I'll do anything. She held his gaze. Prove it. Then she turned to the boys. Come on, loves. Let's get ice cream. Leo cheered. Theo grabbed her hand. Can I get sprinkles? Only if you eat your carrots at dinner, she teased. They started walking away. Alexander stood rooted to the spot, watching them go. The sway of Clara's hips, the bounce in the boys' steps, the way Theo looked back over his shoulder and waved. Bye, Mr. Dad. Alexander's knees nearly buckled. Clara paused, looked back at him over her shoulder. Tomorrow, she said, 10 a.m., the clinic. Come alone, and dress down. They don't care about your suits. Then she turned and walked away, leaving him standing there, alone, shattered, reborn. He didn't go back to the inn. He walked, for hours, along the shore, through the town, past the clinic, small, humble, hers, past the school where the boys' artwork was taped to the windows, past the ice cream shop where he could still hear their laughter echoing. He didn't eat, didn't sleep, didn't call his assistant, didn't check his emails. He just walked and thought about the freckle, about the dimple, about the way Leo had crossed his arms just like Alexander did when he was skeptical, about the way Theo had grinned wide, fearless, just like Clara when she was plotting something. They were his, and he had almost missed them, forever. At 3 a.m. he sat on the beach, shoes abandoned, suit pants rolled up, waves licking at his ankles. He pulled out his phone, opened the camera, scrolled back years to the last photo he had of Clara. The one in Santorini, wind in her hair, eyes closed, smiling. He stared at it. Then, for the first time in 5 years, he let himself cry. Quietly, violently, hopelessly. He cried for the years lost, for the birthdays missed, for the lullabies never sung, for the tiny hands he hadn't held, for the woman he had broken, and who had somehow, impossibly, rebuilt herself into something even more beautiful. He cried until his throat was raw, until the sky began to lighten, until the first seagull cried overhead. And then he stood, wiped his face, straightened his ruined suit, and walked back to town. The next morning, he stood outside the clinic at 9:45 a.m., wearing jeans, plain sweater, no watch, no tie. He looked human. Clara opened the door at exactly 10. She took one look at him, at the shadows under his eyes, at the humility in his posture, and nodded. Come in. The boys were in the waiting room coloring at a small table. They looked up. Theo grinned. You came back. Leo studied him. You're wearing jeans. Alexander smiled, small, nervous. Yeah, figured you guys don't care about fancy clothes. Leo nodded approvingly. Good choice. Clara led him to a small office, closed the door. No pleasantries, no small talk. She sat across from him, hands folded, eyes steady. Before you meet them properly, she said, there are rules. He nodded. Tell me. 1, you don't push. You let them set the pace. If they want to hug you, they will. If they don't, you don't force it. Understood. 2, you don't buy their love. No extravagant gifts. No private jets. No nannies. You show up. You play. You listen. You be there. I will. 3, you don't disappear. If you commit to being their father, you commit for life. No business trips that last months. No urgent meetings that cancel birthdays. You prioritize them. Always. His throat tightened. I swear it. She studied him for a long moment. Then, she reached into her desk drawer, pulled out a thick envelope, handed it to him. What's this? He asked. Every ultrasound, she said softly. Every milestone. First smile. First word. First step. First day of preschool. Every note I wrote to them when I was scared. Every letter I wrote to you that I never sent. He took the envelope, hands trembling. They deserve to know their story, she said. And you deserve to know what you missed. He opened it. The first photo, grainy, black and white, showed 2 tiny blobs. Week 8, twins. I'm terrified, and so in love. His vision blurred. He looked up at her. Why are you doing this? She met his gaze. Because they're your sons. And because I think you're finally ready to be their father. He didn't trust himself to speak, so he just nodded. And when Leo poked his head in the door, Mama, can Mr. Dad see my drawing? Alexander stood, walked over, looked at the scribbled mess of crayon, and said with absolute sincerity, It's the best drawing I've ever seen. Leo beamed, and just like that, Alexander sat across from her, the envelope of photos and letters trembling in his hands. He hadn't opened it fully, not yet, just enough to glimpse the first ultrasound. 2 tiny heartbeats flickering on grainy paper, proof of a miracle he never knew existed. His throat burned, his chest ached. He didn't dare look up. Leo and Theo were still in the waiting room, giggling over crayons, blissfully unaware that the ground beneath their world had just cracked open. Clara watched him. Not with pity, not with anger, but with the quiet intensity of a woman who had carried this truth alone for too long. You kept them, he finally whispered, voice raw. All this time, you kept them from me. She didn't flinch. I didn't keep them from you. I kept them for me, for them, until you were ready to be more than a name on a birth certificate. Until you were ready to be a father, not a CEO looking for an heir. He looked up then, eyes glistening. You didn't trust me. I trusted what you showed me, she said softly. You walked away because I couldn't give you children. What would you have done if I told you I could? But only on my terms. Only without your control. Only without your money dictating their lives. He opened his mouth, then closed it. Because he knew the answer. He would have demanded DNA tests. He would have insisted on legal contracts. He would have moved them into a penthouse, hired nannies, scheduled their lives like board meetings. He would have turned them into assets, not sons. She saw the realization dawn in his eyes. The shame, the regret, and for the first time, something in her expression softened. Just a fraction. I didn't want them to grow up feeling like they had to earn your love, she said. I didn't want them to feel like they were born into a transaction. They deserved to be loved, just because they existed. Not because they were Vance blood. Not because they completed your legacy. Just because. He swallowed hard. And now? Why now? She leaned forward, elbows on the desk, fingers laced. Because you showed up. Because you didn't send lawyers. Because you didn't try to buy them. Because you crouched down to their level and asked them about fishing, not stocks. Because you wore jeans. A choked laugh escaped him. That's it? Jeans? That's it? She said, and for the first time, the ghost of a real smile touched her lips. It's not about the clothes, Alexander. It's about humility. It's about showing up as a man, not a monument. He stared at her, at the woman who had once looked at him with stars in her eyes, then with shattered glass, and now with cautious, weary hope. He opened the envelope again, pulled out the next photo. Week 20. They kicked at the same time today. Felt like fireworks. I laughed until I cried. I wish you could have felt this. His breath hitched. He flipped to the next. First day of preschool. Leo cried. Theo didn't. I cried for both of them. And for you. I still do sometimes. He squeezed his eyes shut. Clara, I'm so sorry. She didn't say, "It's okay." She didn't say, "I forgive you." She just watched him, letting him sit in the weight of it. "You don't get to cry for them now," she said gently, "unless you're willing to show up for them every day after. They're not a redemption arc, Alexander. They're little boys who need a dad. Not a hero, not a savior, just present." He nodded, wiping his eyes with the back of his hand. "I'll do it, whatever it takes." She studied him. "Even if it means stepping down? Even if it means moving here? Even if it means letting me call the shots? Not your board, not your lawyers, not your ego." He didn't hesitate. "Yes." She held his gaze for a long moment. Then she stood, walked to the door, opened it. Leo and Theo looked up from their coloring crayons frozen mid-stroke. "Boys," Clara said, voice warm but firm, "come here for a minute." They scrambled up, abandoning their drawings, and ran to her side. Leo grabbing her hand, Theo leaning against her leg. She knelt beside them. "Remember the Mr. Dad from yesterday?" They nodded. "Well, he's not just Mr. Dad. He's your dad, your real dad, the one who helped make you with me." Theo's eyes widened. "Like, forever dad?" Clara smiled. "Like forever dad." Leo frowned. "But why didn't he come before?" Alexander's heart stopped. Clara didn't look at him. She kept her eyes on her sons. "He didn't know about you, not until yesterday. But now that he does, he wants to be part of your life, if that's okay with you." Theo looked up at Alexander. "Do you know how to play pirates?" Alexander blinked. I can learn." Leo crossed his arms. "Do you know how to fix bikes? Mine has a wobbly wheel." "I'll figure it out," Alexander said, voice thick. Theo grinned. "Can you carry us on your shoulders?" Alexander's breath caught. "I'd love to." Leo studied him for a long moment. Then he held out his hand. "Okay, you can be our dad, but only if you promise to come to my soccer game next week." Alexander took his son's tiny hand, warm, sticky from crayons, impossibly small in his own. "I promise," he whispered. Theo threw his arms around Alexander's legs. "Yay, Dad!" Alexander froze, then slowly, carefully, wrapped his arms around his son, held him, felt the weight of him, the warmth, the realness. Leo watched them. Then, he stepped forward and hugged Alexander's side. Alexander closed his eyes, held them both, and for the first time in his life, he felt whole. Clara watched them, her sons clinging to the man who had once discarded her, now clinging back like he'd never let go. Her chest ached, not from pain, from hope. Later, after the boys were distracted with juice boxes and stickers, Clara walked Alexander to the door. He turned to her, eyes still red-rimmed, voice rough. "Thank you for giving me this chance." She nodded. "Don't thank me, thank them. They're the ones who decided to let you in." He glanced back at the boys, now arguing over which sticker was cooler, and smiled. A real smile, soft, tender. "I will," he said, "every day." She hesitated. Then, "There's one more thing." He tensed. "What?" She reached into her pocket, pulled out a small key. "This is the key to the cottage next door. Gus's old place. He's renting it out. Furnished, quiet, close enough for you to walk here every morning. Far enough that you don't crowd us." Alexander stared at the key. You want me to move here?" "I want you to choose to be here," she corrected. "Not because you're trapped, not because you're guilty, but because you want to be their father. Because you want to wake up to the sound of the ocean and the chaos of two little boys who think you're the coolest thing since ice cream trucks." He took the key, closed his fingers around it. It felt heavier than any contract he'd ever signed. "I'll take it," he said. She nodded. "Good. Move in tomorrow. Breakfast is at 7:30. Don't be late." He smiled. "I won't." She turned to go, then paused, looked back at him. "One more rule." He braced himself. "No secrets," she said. "Not from me, not from them. If you're going to be their father, you do it with honesty. Even when it's hard, even when it hurts." He met her gaze. "I swear it." She held his eyes for a long moment. Then she walked away, leaving him standing there, key in hand, heart in throat, future unwritten. That night, Alexander sat on the porch of the cottage next door. Bare walls, creaky floors, salt-stained windows. He didn't turn on the lights, just sat in the dark, listening to the waves, the distant laughter from Clara's house, the occasional shriek of "Dad, Dad, look at this." He opened the envelope again, read every letter, every note, every tear-stained confession. Today, Theo said, "Mama," for the first time. "I cried so hard. I wish you were here to hear it." Leo got his first fever. "I was so scared. Held him all night. Sang to him. Wished you were here to hold us both. They look so much like you. It hurts. And it heals. I don't know how that's possible." He wept, quietly, freely, for the first time in years. And when he finally stood, stiff, exhausted, heart raw, he walked to the edge of the porch, looked toward Clara's house, saw her silhouette in the window, holding a mug, watching the stars. She didn't wave, didn't smile, but she didn't close the curtain. And for now, that was enough. The next morning at 7:25 a.m., Alexander stood on Clara's porch, hair damp from the shower, wearing a sweater Theo had deemed acceptable, holding a box of donuts and 2 cartons of chocolate milk. He knocked. The door opened. Leo grinned. "You're early." Theo tackled his legs. "Did you bring chocolate milk?" Alexander laughed, real, bright, unguarded. "I did." Clara appeared behind them, coffee in hand, hair still messy from sleep. She looked at him, really looked, and for the first time in 5 years, she smiled. Not a polite smile, not a guarded smile, a real one, warm, hopeful, full of promise. He followed them, laughing. A sound so unfamiliar in his own ears it startled him, and dropped to the floor beside their lopsided creation. "This is the pirate ship," Theo announced, crawling inside. "You're the captain, but only if you can say R properly." Alexander cleared his throat. "R," Leo groaned. "That was terrible. Try again." A roar. Theo clapped. "Perfect. Now you get a sword." He shoved a plastic lightsaber into Alexander's hand. Clara leaned against the doorway, arms crossed, watching. A small, private smile playing on her lips as Alexander let himself be dragged into their world of make-believe, crawling under tables, dodging cannonballs, pillows, and dramatically falling overboard when Leo pushed him with a giggle. For a moment, just a moment, she let herself believe it could be this easy. But then her phone buzzed. A text from Marge at the clinic. Rumors already spreading. Billionaire CEO moves to Havens Cove to be with his secret twins. TMZ called. I hung up. "You okay?" Clara's smile faded. She glanced at Alexander, now lying on the floor, pretending to be eaten by sharks, while Theo rescued him with a spatula. He was happy. They were happy. And the world was already circling. Later, after the boys were dropped off at preschool, "Don't forget my soccer ball, Dad," Leo yelled from the car. Clara and Alexander sat on her porch with coffee. The ocean breeze was cool, the sky clear, peaceful, until she slid her phone across the table. He picked it up, scrolled. His jaw tightened. Vance Holdings CEO Alexander Vance spotted in small-town Maine, with mysterious woman and 2 young boys. Sources claim secret family revealed. Did the tycoon abandon his infertile wife only to father twins in secret? Who is Clara Morrow, the doctor who stole Vance's heart and his heirs? He set the phone down. "I'll shut it down." "How?" she asked, voice quiet. "Lawyers? NDAs? Payoffs? That's your world, Alexander. Not mine. And not theirs." He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture so familiar it made her chest ache. "I didn't ask for this. I don't want this for them." "Then what do you want?" she pressed. "Because this is the reality now. You walked into their lives. You stood on that pier. You let them call you Dad. The world noticed, and they won't look away." He looked at her, really looked. I want to be their father. Full stop. No cameras. No headlines. No boardroom politics. Just them. And you, if you'll let me. She studied him, saw the sincerity, saw the fear, not of scandal, but of losing this fragile, beautiful thing they'd just begun to build. I don't know if I can protect them from this, she admitted, voice barely above a whisper. I spent 5 years hiding them, keeping them safe, and now they're exposed. Because of you. He flinched. I know, and I'm sorry, but I won't hide from them. Not anymore. If the world wants to watch, let them watch me be the father my sons deserve. She searched his eyes. And what if the board forces you to choose? Vance Holdings or your sons? He didn't hesitate. Then I walk away. Her breath caught. You'd give up your empire? For them. He smiled, small, sad, certain. In a heartbeat. I spent my life building something I thought mattered. Turns out, it was just noise. They're what matters. You're what matters. She looked away, out at the ocean, at the gulls wheeling overhead, at the life she'd built. Quiet, safe, hers. And now him, here, claiming a place in it. I'm scared, she admitted, voice cracking. Not of you, not anymore, but of this, of the world tearing them apart, of them growing up feeling like spectacles, of you changing your mind when the shine wears off. He reached across the table, didn't touch her, just let his hand rest near hers. I won't change my mind, and I'll fight the world for them, but I can't do it alone. I need you, Clara, not as my wife, not as my redemption, but as their mother, as my partner in this. Please. She looked down at his hand, so close to hers, so familiar, so changed. She didn't pull away. That afternoon, Alexander stood in front of his laptop in the bare cottage next door. Video call opened to his board of directors. They stared back at him, stunned, skeptical, furious. Are the rumors true, Alexander? Asked Eleanor Shaw, the lead director, her voice icy. Have you fathered twins with your ex-wife? He didn't flinch. Yes. And you're moving to Maine? Permanently? I am. Eleanor leaned forward. Do you understand what this does to the company? To our stock? To our image? You're the face of Vance Holdings. Not some small-town dad playing house. Alexander's voice was calm, steady, final. Then find a new face. I'm stepping down as CEO. Silence. Stunned. Absolute silence. You can't be serious, Richard Lowell, his longtime attorney, breathed. I've never been more serious, Alexander said. I'm appointing Evelyn as interim CEO. She knows the business. She's ruthless. She'll keep you all in line. As for me, I'm done. Eleanor's eyes narrowed. This is about the children, isn't it? You're throwing away everything for fatherhood. Yes, he said simply. I am. Clara didn't know about the call. She was at the clinic, stitching up a fisherman's hand, when her phone buzzed again. This time it was a news alert. Shock resignation. Alexander Vance steps down as CEO of Vance Holdings to focus on family. Sources confirm secret twins. She stared at the screen, heart pounding, hands trembling. She finished the stitches on autopilot, mumbled an excuse to Marge, and ran out to her car. Drove straight to the cottage. Burst through the door. Alexander was on the couch, laptop closed, staring out the window. He looked up, saw her face, stood slowly. You saw. You quit, she whispered. You gave up everything? He walked toward her. Not everything, just the things that didn't matter. She shook her head, tears welling. Do you know what this means? The press will go insane. They'll camp outside our houses. They'll follow the boys to school. They'll dig up every detail of our past. They'll call me a gold digger, a schemer. They'll say you're having a midlife crisis. He took her hands. Let them. She stared at him. Why? Why would you do this? He cupped her face, gently, reverently. Because when I saw them on that pier, I realized I'd spent my life chasing ghosts. Power, legacy, control. None of it meant anything. But them? You? That's real. That's worth fighting for, even if the whole world watches. She searched his eyes, saw no regret, no hesitation, only certainty. And if you wake up tomorrow and regret it? She whispered. He smiled soft, said, Sure, I won't. But if I do, I'll still choose them. Every time. She closed her eyes, leaned into his touch. For the first time in 5 years, she let herself believe him. That night, after the boys were asleep, Alexander sat on Clara's porch again, staring at the stars. She joined him, handing him a mug of tea. They sat in silence for a long time. Then, "What will you do now?" she asked. "Without the company?" He smiled. "I hear there's a clinic in town that could use a volunteer. Maybe someone to fix wobbly bike wheels. Or play pirates." She laughed, soft, warm, real. "You're serious?" "Dead serious." He looked at her. "I don't need a title to be useful, Clara. I just need a purpose. And I found it." She studied him. The man who had once commanded boardrooms, now content to build blanket forts. "What about the money?" she asked. "The houses? The jets?" He shrugged. "I'll keep enough to support them. The rest, I'll donate. Start a foundation. For families like ours. For women told they're incompatible. For kids who need to know they're wanted, no matter how they came to be." She blinked back tears. "You've changed." He looked out at the ocean. "They changed me. You changed me." She didn't reply, but she didn't pull away when his hand found hers. The next morning, the paparazzi arrived. 3 vans, 6 photographers, a reporter from People magazine. They camped outside Clara's house. Alexander walked out, in jeans and a sweater, holding Theo's hand, Leo's backpack slung over his shoulder. The cameras flashed. The questions flew. "Mr. Vance, are these your sons? Why did you leave your wife? Is this a publicity stunt?" Alexander stopped, knelt down in front of the boys, looked them in the eye. "Cover your ears. Okay? Just for a second." They giggled but obeyed. Tiny hands clamped over their ears. Alexander stood, turned to the cameras, and said, loud, clear, for the whole world to hear, "These are my sons, Leo and Theo Vance, and their mother, Dr. Clara Moreau, is the bravest, strongest, most incredible woman I know. I failed them once. I won't fail them again. Now, if you'll excuse us, we have a soccer game to get to." Then he took their hands and walked straight through the crowd. Not a CEO, not a tycoon, just a dad. Clara watched from the window, tears streaming down her face. Not from sadness. He walked out every morning, hand in hand with Leo and Theo, backpacks bouncing, lunchboxes swinging, and ignored them. Didn't speak, didn't glare, didn't give them the satisfaction of a reaction. He just walked, past the shouted questions, past the flashing bulbs, past the whispers of, "Is that really him?" And, "Look how domesticated the tycoon is." He was a father now, not a headline. But Clara? Clara was unraveling. She stood at the clinic window, hands gripping the sill, knuckles white. As another photographer snapped photos of her walking to her car, she could feel their eyes on her, judging, dissecting, rewriting her story. The infertile wife who secretly stole his embryos. The small-town doctor who trapped a billionaire with twins. Clara Moreau, gold digger or genius? She hadn't asked for this. She hadn't wanted this. She had built a quiet life, a safe life for her sons. And now they were front-page news. Now strangers knew their names, their school, their favorite ice cream flavors. Now the world thought she was a schemer, a thief, a woman who had manipulated a broken man into fatherhood. She clenched her jaw, swallowed hard, forced herself to breathe. For them. Do it for them. That night, after the boys were asleep, Leo clutching his stuffed shark, Theo sprawled like a starfish across his bed. Clara sat at the kitchen table, staring at her laptop. The articles were everywhere. The comments were worse. "She's using those kids to get back at him. He's clearly having a breakdown. Poor guy. Those boys deserve better than a mom who lied for 5 years." Her hands shook. She slammed the laptop shut, stood, paced, stopped, looked out the window, saw the faint glow of Alexander's cottage next door. And before she could think, before she could stop herself, she walked out the door, crossed the dew-damp grass, knocked. He opened the door instantly, as if he'd been waiting, hair tousled, sweater rumpled, eyes tired but alert. "Clara?" She didn't speak, just pushed past him into the cottage. He closed the door behind her, didn't touch her, didn't ask, just waited. She turned to face him. "You didn't warn me," she said, voice trembling. "You didn't tell me you were going to quit. You didn't tell me you were going to make us a goddamn spectacle." He didn't flinch. "I didn't know how else to protect them. If I stayed CEO, the board would have used them as leverage. The press would have painted you as a villain. This was the only way to take control." "Control?" She let out a bitter laugh. "You think this is control? They're camped outside my house, Alexander. They're taking pictures of my children on their way to preschool. They're calling me a liar, a manipulator. I know." His voice was quiet, firm. "And I'll fix it." "How?" she demanded, tears spilling over. "How do you fix this? You can't erase the internet. You can't unring this bell. They're for Alexander. They don't understand why strangers are shouting at them, why cameras follow them, why kids at school ask if their dad is the crazy rich guy who quit his job." He stepped closer. "Then we leave." She froze. "What?" "We leave Havens Cove. Tonight. Pack the boys. Grab what you need. I'll charter a plane. We'll go somewhere quiet, somewhere no one knows us. Start over." She stared at him. "And run? Is that your solution? Run like I did 5 years ago?" "No," he said, voice low, intense. "Not run. Choose. Choose them over the noise. Choose peace over pride. Choose us over the world." She shook her head. "I won't live in hiding again. I won't let them grow up afraid of their own story." "Then we fight," he said simply. "Together." She looked away, out the window, at the moonlit ocean, the life she'd built now under siege. "What do you want, Clara?" he asked softly. "Not what you think you should want. What do you really want?" She closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and whispered the truth she'd been too afraid to say out loud. "I want them to be safe. I want them to be happy. I want them to know they're loved, not because they're Vance heirs, not because they're twins, not because they're miracles, but because they're Leo and Theo. Just them, just as they are." He nodded. "Then that's what we'll give them." She looked at him, really looked, saw the determination in his eyes, the love, the change. "And you?" she asked, voice barely audible. "What do you want?" He didn't hesitate. "You, them, this, however messy it is, however hard. I don't want an empire. I want a home, with you, with them, even if it's loud, even if it's complicated, even if the whole world watches." Her breath hitched. She wanted to believe him. She needed to believe him. But the fear was still there, coiled in her chest, whispering that this was too good to be true, that he would wake up one day and realize what he'd given up, that he would regret this, that he would leave again. "What if you change your mind?" she whispered. "What if you miss it? The power, the control, the you used to be." He stepped closer, so close she could feel the warmth of him, could smell the faint cedar of his soap, could see the flecks of gold in his green eyes, eyes that now looked at her with nothing but certainty. "I'm not the man I was," he said, voice rough with emotion. "That man thought love was a transaction, that legacy was bloodline, that success was measured in stock prices. That man was empty, and he lost the only thing that ever mattered." He reached out, slowly, giving her time to pull away, and cupped her face. "You gave me a second chance. Not for me, for them. But I'm taking it. For all of us. I'm not going anywhere, Clara. Not now. Not ever." She searched his eyes, saw no lie, no hesitation, only truth. She closed her eyes, leaned into his touch, and for the first time in 5 years, She let herself hope. The next morning, Alexander didn't walk the boys to school. He drove them, in a plain sedan. No logo, no driver, just him. Buckling them in, handing them their snacks, kissing their foreheads. "Remember," he said, voice low, "if anyone asks about the cameras, you just say, 'That's not our story. Our story is soccer practice and ice cream and bedtime stories.' Okay?" Leo nodded seriously. "Got it." Theo grinned. "Can I say you're the best dad ever?" Alexander's throat tightened. "You can say whatever you want, buddy." At the clinic, Clara faced the whispers head-on. When a patient asked, "Are you really that Clara Moreau?" she smiled. "I'm Dr. Moreau, and I'm also Leo and Theo's mom. But here, I'm just your doctor." When Marge handed her a stack of fan mail. Yes, fan mail. From women thanking her for giving them hope. She read every letter, cried over some, framed one. When a reporter slipped into the waiting room, she didn't call security. She walked over, looked him in the eye, and said, calm, clear, for everyone to hear, "If you want to tell a story about my sons, tell the truth. They're not props. They're not headlines. They're little boys who love dinosaurs and hate broccoli and think their dad is the coolest guy alive. That's the only story that matters." The reporter blinked, nodded, left. That night, Alexander came over for dinner, not as a guest, as family. He helped set the table, washed the dishes, read bedtime stories, doing voices for pirates and dragons, making the boys shriek with laughter. After they were asleep, he and Clara sat on the porch, sipping tea, watching the stars. The cameras were still there, but quieter now, less hungry, more respectful. "They're learning," Clara murmured. He nodded. "People always do, when they see the truth." She looked at him. "Why are you really doing this? All of it. The resignation, the move, the us." He didn't look away. "Because when I saw you on that pier, holding their hands, smiling like the sun, I realized I'd spent my life chasing shadows, power, legacy, control. None of it meant anything. But this," he gestured between them, "this messy, complicated, real, this is everything. You're everything. They're everything. I'm not trying to win you back, Clara. I'm trying to earn the right to stand beside you, as their father, as your partner. However you'll have me." She studied him, saw the sincerity, the humility, the love, and for the first time she reached for his hand. Not because she needed him, but because she wanted him. "Stay," she whispered. He didn't ask what she meant. He just squeezed her hand and smiled. But because they were his, fully, terrifyingly, beautifully his, and he had no idea what he was doing. "Dad, Dad, look, a crab!" Theo shrieked, pointing at a tiny, sideways, scuttling creature half buried in the sand. Alexander crouched beside him, heart hammering. Yeah, that's a crab. Very crabby." Leo rolled his eyes. "No, Dad, that's a hermit crab. See, it has a shell. Right? Hermit. Very solitary." Theo giggled. "He's silly, Leo." Leo nodded sagely. "He's new at this." Alexander laughed, shaky, relieved. "Yeah, I am." He watched them dig in the sand, their small hands working furiously, their voices rising and falling in that sweet, chaotic rhythm only children possess. He didn't interrupt, didn't direct, just watched, absorbed, memorized. The way Theo's tongue stuck out when he concentrated. The way Leo's brow furrowed when he was plotting something, usually mischief. The way they looked up at him between shovelfuls of sand, grinning, expecting nothing but his presence. No demands, no expectations, just that. Later, as they walked back to the car, sandy, sun-kissed, sticky with melted popsicles, Leo tugged at Alexander's hand. "Dad." "Yeah, buddy? Why didn't you come before?" Alexander's breath caught. Theo looked up too, eyes wide, curious. Not accusatory, just wondering. He stopped walking, knelt in the sand, ignoring the grit seeping into his jeans, and pulled them close. "I didn't know about you. he said, voice thick. Not until Mama showed me. And that was the biggest mistake of my life. Not knowing you, not being there. Leo studied him. Were you sad? Alexander swallowed hard. Every single day, even when I didn't know why. Theo hugged him. Sudden, fierce, smelling of salt and sugar. It's okay, Dad. You're here now. Leo nodded. Yeah, and you're pretty good at sandcastles. Alexander closed his eyes, held them tight, and for the first time, he didn't feel like a fraud. He felt like a father. That night, after bedtime stories and toothbrushing and the sacred ritual of one more glass of water, Alexander sat on Clara's porch, staring at the stars, replaying every moment of the day. The crab, the sandcastle, the popsicle-stained grins, the way Theo had fallen asleep on his shoulder in the car, tiny fingers curled into his sweater, the way Leo had whispered, "Good night, Dad," like it was the most natural thing in the world. He didn't hear Clara approach. She sat beside him, handing him a mug of tea. They talked about you all through dinner. He smiled. Yeah? What did they say? That you're the best at finding crabs, and that you let Theo win at tag, and that you didn't yell when Leo spilled juice all over your shirt. He chuckled. Accurate. She was quiet for a moment. Then, they're falling in love with you. He looked at her. And you? She didn't answer right away, just stared out at the ocean, the moonlight painting her face in silver and shadow. I'm figuring it out, she said finally. It's not simple, not after everything, but watching you with them, it's hard not to see the man you've become. He reached for her hand, didn't take it, just let his fingers brush hers. I'm not the man I was. I know, she whispered, and that's what scares me. He turned to her. Why? Because I spent 5 years believing you were incapable of change, that you were cold, calculating, that love was just another asset to you. And now you're here, building sandcastles, reading bedtime stories, quitting your empire for soccer games. She looked at him, eyes glistening. What if this is temporary? What if you wake up one day and realize you miss the power, the control? What if you leave again? He didn't flinch, didn't look away. I won't. You can't promise that. I can, he said, voice low, fierce. Because I'm not doing this for redemption, Clara. I'm not doing it to fix the past. I'm doing it because when I look at them, at you, I feel alive in a way I never did in a boardroom. This isn't a phase. This is me, the real me, the one you saw before I let the world turn me into a monster. She searched his eyes, saw the truth, the vulnerability, the love, and for the first time, she let herself believe it. The next morning, disaster struck. Leo woke up with a fever, not a little one, a scary one. Clara took one look at him, flushed, glassy-eyed, whimpering, and snapped into doctor mode. Tylenol, cool cloth, fluids. Now, Alexander hovered, useless, terrified. Should we go to the hospital? No, not yet. Viral. We've seen this before. She glanced at him. Unless you want to. He shook his head. Whatever you say. She softened. Stay with him. I'll get the medicine. He sat on the edge of Leo's bed, heart pounding, as Clara bustled around the kitchen. Theo clung to his leg, wide-eyed. Is Leo gonna be okay, Dad? Alexander pulled him close. Yeah, buddy. Mama's the best doctor in the world. He's gonna be fine. But inside, he was screaming. What if I can't protect him? What if I fail him? What if this is my punishment for leaving? Clara returned with medicine and a damp cloth. She sat beside Alexander, gently coaxing Leo to swallow the syrup. Mama, Leo whimpered, curling into her. I'm here, sweetheart. Dad's here too. Alexander took Leo's small, hot hand. I'm right here, Leo. I've got you. Leo's eyes fluttered open, looked at him. You won't leave. Alexander's throat tightened. Never. Clara glanced at him, surprised, touched. Leo sighed, nestling back into the pillows. Okay. For the next 24 hours, Alexander didn't leave Leo's side. He read stories, voice cracking on the scary parts. He sang lullabies off-key, but Leo didn't care. He held cool cloths to his forehead. He whispered, "I love you," over and over, like a prayer. Clara watched him. From the doorway, from the kitchen, from the chair beside the bed, and saw something she'd never seen before. Devotion. Not duty. Not guilt. Devotion. When Leo's fever finally broke, Alexander nearly collapsed with relief. He stumbled into the kitchen, where Clara was making tea. She handed him a mug. "You did good." He shook his head. "I didn't do anything. You did everything. You stayed," she said softly. "That's what mattered." He looked at her. "I'm never leaving again. Not them. Not you. Not this life." She studied him, saw the exhaustion, the fear, the love, and for the first time she reached for him, not as a friend, not as a co-parent, but as something more. She wrapped her arms around him, held him tight, and whispered, "I know." That night, as they sat on the porch, Leo asleep, Theo snoring softly in his room, the stars blazing overhead, Alexander turned to Clara. "I want to adopt them." She froze. "What?" "Legally, officially. I want my name on their birth certificates. I want to be their father in every way, not just biology, not just convenience." She stared at him. "You know what that means? You'll have to go to court. The press will go wild. There will be questions. About the embryos. About the divorce. About—" "I don't care," he said firmly. "Let them ask. Let them write. I'll answer every question. I'll tell them the truth, that I was a fool. That I walked away from the best thing I ever had. That I'm trying to make it right. That I love them. That I love you." Her breath hitched. "Alexander, I'm not asking for us to be a couple," he said quickly. "Not yet. Maybe not ever. But I'm asking to be their father. Fully. Completely. No loopholes. No fine print. Just me. For them. For you. However you'll have me." She looked out at the ocean, at the life they were building, messy, complicated, beautiful, and for the first time she smiled. "Okay," she whispered. "Let's do it." The next morning, Leo, pale but grinning, looked up at Alexander from the breakfast table. "Dad." "Yeah, buddy? Can we go to the beach again? When I'm better?" Alexander smiled. "Absolutely." Leo nodded. "Good, 'cause I'm gonna build a bigger sandcastle. And you're gonna help me." Alexander ruffled his hair. "Deal." And as he watched his sons laugh, sticky, sandy, alive, he knew this was his legacy. Clara poured coffee, didn't speak, just watched him flip through the pages, his fingers trembling slightly, his breath shallow. "This is it," he murmured. "No turning back." She nodded. "Once you sign, the press will find out. They always do." He looked up. Let them. They didn't have to wait long. By Wednesday morning, the headlines screamed from every newsstand. "Vance adopts secret twins." "Legal battle looms as ex-wife fights for custody." Clara nearly dropped her coffee. "What the hell?" she hissed, scrolling through the article on her phone. "I never said I was fighting for custody. I agreed to this." Alexander grabbed the phone, scanned the text. His jaw tightened. "They're twisting it, making it sound like you're resisting, like I'm forcing my way in." Theo looked up from his coloring. "Mama, why is your face mad?" She forced a smile. "Just grown-up stuff, sweetheart." Leo frowned. "Is it about Dad?" Alexander set the phone down. "Yeah, buddy, but it's nothing to worry about. Mama and I are handling it." Theo nodded. "Okay, can we have pancakes?" Clara exhaled. "Yes, pancakes sound perfect." But the storm was just beginning. By noon, the paparazzi were back. Twice as many, twice as loud. "Dr. Moreau, are you being pressured into this adoption? Mr. Vance, is this a publicity stunt to rehabilitate your image? Are the boys aware you're not their biological father?" Alexander stepped onto the porch, face like stone. "That's enough." The reporters fell silent. He didn't shout, didn't rage, just spoke, calm, clear, deadly serious. Leo and Theo Vance are my sons. Biologically, legally, emotionally, full stop. Their mother and I are united in this. If you print lies about us, about them, I will sue every last one of you into oblivion. Now leave, before I call the police. They didn't move. Clara stepped beside him, took his hand, not for show, not for the cameras, but because she needed to, because they needed to. This is our family, she said, voice steady. Not your headline, not your drama. If you want to tell our story, tell the truth. That we're two parents who love their children more than anything. That's all that matters. The reporters exchanged glances. Then, one by one, they backed away. But the internet didn't back down. The comments were vicious. He's buying his way into fatherhood. She's letting him erase her sacrifice. Those poor kids, used as pawns in a billionaire's redemption arc. Clara read them late at night, after the boys were asleep, tears streaming down her face. Alexander found her on the porch, laptop glowing in the dark. He didn't speak, just sat beside her, took the laptop, closed it, then he pulled her into his arms. She didn't resist, just buried her face in his chest and sobbed. They don't know, she whispered. They don't know how hard this was, how much I fought to protect them, how much I still fight. He held her tighter. I know. They think I'm weak, that I'm letting you win. You're not letting me win, he said fiercely. You're choosing them, choosing peace, choosing us. That's not weakness, Clara. That's strength. The strongest thing I've ever seen. She looked up at him. What if they're right? What if this ruins them? He cupped her face. Then we'll fix it. Together. We'll shield them. We'll teach them. We'll show them that love is louder than hate. That family is stronger than scandal. She searched his eyes, saw no doubt, no hesitation, just love. And for the first time, she let herself lean into it. The next morning, Evelyn Vance, Alexander's sister, and now interim CEO of Vance Holdings, arrived unannounced. She strode into Clara's kitchen like she owned it. Heels clicking, suit impeccable, eyes sharp. Alexander stood. Evelyn, what are you doing here? She ignored him, looked at Clara. Dr. Moreau, I need to speak with you. Alone. Clara crossed her arms. Whatever you have to say, you can say in front of him. Evelyn sighed. Fine. She turned to Alexander. The board is furious. They're calling this adoption a hostile takeover of the Vance name. They're threatening to contest it. Alexander's eyes narrowed. On what grounds? That Clara withheld vital medical information, the existence of the embryos, to manipulate you into fatherhood. Clara laughed, bitter, sharp. Manipulate him? I spent 5 years hiding from him. If I wanted to manipulate him, I would have shown up on his doorstep the moment I got pregnant. Evelyn held up a hand. I'm not saying I believe them, but they're powerful, and they're scared. You walked away from the company, Alexander. Now you're giving your name, the Vance name, to children born outside the approved parameters. They see it as a threat. Alexander stepped forward. Then let them try. I'll bankrupt them before I let them near my sons. Evelyn studied him. Then she smiled. Good. That's what I wanted to hear. Clara blinked. Wait. You're on our side? Evelyn turned to her. I've read your file, Dr. Moreau.